Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever won a game of chess? Have you ever won 2 games or maybe even 3 games of chess? Have you ever won those games in a row? Have you ever won 13 chess games in a row? Well, recently, I did. I don't know if you've answered any of those questions, yes or no, but I've been on a bit of a down streak in the last maybe week or two. And then a couple of days ago, I was streaming. And I won something like 16 out of 17 games, some completely insane number, and it was my longest winning streak ever. I did it against a variety of different opponents, some I played more than others. If you go to my chess.com account, my longest winning streak is like 38 or something ridiculous, but that's against subscribers. That's when I was playing kind of like games against people who are 1,000 points lower than me, but my longest winning streak ever against players who are 25, 2600 is 13. And in this video, I'm going to share those games with all of you. I'm going to share some of my highlight games, some of the games that were my favorite. All these games have kind of unique elements about them, so we'll learn. And yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer in the fact that if you ever fall off a rating, like 100 points or 150 points, you are that rating. Like, you have the ability to be that rating. It's just about putting it all together. And I don't know, sometimes you sleep well, sometimes the caffeine hits, sometimes something else that you take hits. I don't know. This winning streak began against the Greek player, Lutragotis, and this was one of our games. Now, I have to say, this guy was outplaying me in many of the games. He was just slow. I was beating this guy in like time scrambles. In this game, I played a deferred English, so I didn't play the move d4. I defended my pawn with the move e3. And the reason you delay the move d4 until a while later is because you want to put your bishop on this diagonal, and then oftentimes you want to attack. So my opponent, you'll notice, is also kind of developing pieces, a6, queen c2. And in this position, it's really like I'm really out of options. Like, I really should be playing the move d4, or I should be playing the move castles and then playing the move d4. My eyes are on the c pawn. So if the second that the c pawn goes to c5, I take on d5 and then I go d4. That's sort of considered the meta. But it's blitz. So I play rook g1. The idea of rook g1 is that I want to go g4, g5. Now, the computer doesn't really like this. I mean, it thinks that this is ridiculous. But for blitz, it's a lot of fun. So my opponent plays c5, and now again, I really should not be allowing any sort of stuff to happen on the d4 square. So I decide to take now and play the move d4, which is kind of what I'm supposed to do. But I'm supposed to do that when I haven't played the move rook g1. Like, playing c5 here, cd5 and d4 makes sense. But if you've already played rook g1, there is no positional play. Like, I should have just gone g4 straight up, and then just invited the complications, you know, takes on h2. It actually looks like I can get my rook trap, but I'm not even sure that that black wants to do this, because it feels like I can go g5 here and just maybe start beating him up a little bit. For the cost of a rook for a bishop, I don't think it's that bad of a deal. But this game was not about perfect chess. This game was about me having fun. So I played g5. You know, my opponent blocks the middle. He's playing very well here, by the way, lining up the rook to my queen, you know, ready to take on d4. So I have to defend here. I have a pretty unpleasant position. He takes my knight, and now I'm pinned, right? So I'm in some serious trouble. So he attacks my bishop, and I play a really funny move here. I play king to d2. So my king joins the defense of my bishop. I couldn't move my bishop because then he would take and win a material. He plays knight c5, right? And sometimes to win chess games, you just have to put up some good resistance. You have to put up some good defense before you turn the tables completely on your opponent. And I was up like 30 seconds to 40 seconds almost the whole game. And in a 3-minute game, I mean, that's a massive amount of time. That's like 20% of the, roughly, right? 1/6, which is 16.66666667%. There you go. All right. Gotham, the statistics major, doing that is correct, right? Okay, I have to go to my Windows calculator. Yes, there we go. Beautiful. So, you know, when you're defending a position, you sometimes just need to outlast your opponent, right? So he plays knight e6, and now I go queen d3, so I move out of the pin. And if he were to take my knight here, I would just take with the bishop, and I'm not even sure I'm all that worse anymore. So he plays bishop e5, I bring my rook, and now he starts losing the pace. So he plays queen e7, attacking my pawn. I go here, and then I move my knight out of the way, attacking his queen. And the bishops see each other. And here I play probably my most favorite move of the game. He takes on c3 with check. So naturally you see this, you play rook takes c3 and the game goes on. But Gotham that day was extra spicy. And here I found the move queen takes c3. That's a beauty of a move. The point is that if he takes my queen, I take his with check, and then I win his rook. But if he doesn't take my queen, I'm threatening his rook anyway with my bishop. And that is why moving my queen in the line of danger here is so powerful. That's not mate, but keep an eye on that move. He goes queen d7, and here the move knight h6 looks like it's forced mate. Knight h6 takes. It's just check, and he can't escape because of my queen. But unfortunately in chess, it's not checkers, so he doesn't have to take my knight. He can just go king h8, and now I just right. But that would have been nice. But I found this nice idea. I won his rook, and he still had a decent position. Actually, he had very active piece play here. And actually, believe it or not, I think here taking his free pawn was a mistake because I helped him get active, and all of a sudden I didn't really know what to do. So I kind of had to hide my king on f1, and I'm still winning. I'm still winning here. I have to like trade his queen, make sure my king is safe, because in chess, the two most important things are material and king safety. And let me tell you something right now. I am not winning the battle of king safety here, okay? My king is not safe. Rook is coming down, but ultimately, in a low time situation, it proved to be that his king was the one that was not safe, because I forced the queen exchange here. And I set a little bit of a trap as well. If he plays rook to d1, deflecting my rook from the defense of my queen, it's back rank mate. So a nice little tactical skirmish there, and I pick up the win with the mate on g7. So I won this game just by being, defensively kind of solid enough, and then a very nice little tactical idea to sack my queen while his queen would also be hanging, and I got the win. I won a lot of games against our Greek friend here, but like I said, he was playing extremely well. Then I was paired against Andrei Ostrovsky, and I was very motivated to win this matchup because one of my good friends, childhood friends and chess friends to this day, is named Alexander Ostrovsky. So I was determined to beat the only other Ostrovsky in the world, so that my friend could be the best Ostrovsky in the world. You understand? I don't know. That's a very convoluted story. I don't think I've ever played Andrei. He's a very good player. He's probably very close to being GM. Probably has a couple of GM norms, but we've never played. He's Ukrainian, and I think he's currently living in Germany, or has lived in Germany for some time. And I played a King's Gambit. I've been messing around with the King's Gambit. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite openings. I don't know any of the theories, so I'm sort of like you guys, where you like watch one of my videos, and then you try to play an opening, and you have no clue what you're doing, but you win, and then you're like, dude, I love this guy, I love his openings, oh my god. But like, you didn't win because of my opening. You like hung your queen, your rook, they hung their queen, one of those things. So that's kind of how I play the King's Gambit. I just sort of play it, and I take the center, and I just have fun. So he played d5. He kind of counterattacked me in the middle of the board here. I played knight c3. The King's Gambit is all about quick development because your opponent has taken off a center pawn and has a flank pawn now. And in the long run, you might open up the f-file. So he takes and plays knight d5. I don't really like the move knight d5, defending the f4 pawn. I really felt like the knight was loose here. But I didn't want to rush because in the King's Gambit, it's more about piece development. It's not about pawn development. The whole point of a gambit is you try to get as many pieces out as possible because they have more use in the long run. Bishops, knights, etc. So I play bishop c4. My idea is not necessarily to take and take, by the way, and then take this pawn. Like, I just want a castle. So he plays knight c6. I play castles. I could have also played queen e2 here, but I castle. Bishop e6. And I really thought this was not a good move, because my knights now have a target. See, had he played something like bishop to e7, which would have prevented knight g5, maybe I would have played c3, he would have castled, and now we have to play chess from here, maybe rook e1, and I'm looking for a position like this, where I win my pawn back, I have good center control, and you can argue that I have a slight advantage, because I have kind of more stability in the center, which allows me to push down the center in the long run. But he immediately gives me a target, so I go for the bishop. He lets me take it. So now not only do I have a bishop pair, I also have a target, like a very clear target, and a second clear target, right? So what do I play? Queen e2. It's not rocket science. He defends. And now I play this move. This is a very important move because when the center is now super solid, everybody defends everybody, his knight is out of the game. Whereas if I go hunting with my knight, I just lose this pawn, and I don't just lose my attack, I lose the game because he gets the attack now, right? So it's super important for me to improve my structure, let him make a move, he castles, but again, I have a very clear target, and I play rook e1, and if I am to win that pawn back, I'm just gonna be in great shape. So for example, let's say he goes back to f6 here, and I play like queen e6, takes, right? First of all, this is still hanging, so now I'm going to be a pawn up, I'm looking for a second pawn, and that king is weak, right? So just like we saw in the last game, material and king safety is everything. I win in both categories, and I win in active pieces, and I win in space. I win in all 4 categories of evaluating a chess position. He has nothing he can fight back on, right? So he plays rook f6, and now we see the other idea of the move c3. Sorry, the original idea of the move c3. I see a rook and a queen. So where do I want my knight? Here. So my knight is not a bishop, right? So it needs to move. Knight d2 or knight g5, I go here because I attack this and I'm coming here. And now this protects that. He's in big trouble here. So he plays rook g6. I take my pawn back, so I'm now no longer down a pawn, and I've completely removed the defense of all this, right? So he is actually completely lost here because there is a king in the line of sight of my bishop. He plays bishop h4, attacking my rook, but danger levels. And my knight jumps backwards, taking another pawn. Both of these pieces are hit, and the worst part is there's a king at the end of the whole sequence. So now I kind of chop down the trees, right? He takes my rook, I take his knight with check, I take his rook with check, and now I want to take his bishop, but then he would take my bishop. So I take his knight, because this is not going anywhere, and he just resigns. So total decimation, 19 moves, boom, boom. This is why I love the King's Gambit. It allows me to be creative, even if I don't necessarily know all of the theory. So I was really excited about this game. And poor Andrei has to stick around for a second game. I mean, I didn't want to do any repeat opponents, even though I think I beat 6 or 7 people on the course of this streak. Not all the games were that fun, but against Andrei, I played my best games. I mean, I'm sorry, Andrei, probably super nice guy, good teacher, but 2 times against him, I played at 93% caps. I don't know why. I had a chip on my shoulder. I wanted to stick up for my friend who's also an Ostrovsky. And I played the Caro-Kann. Normally when I'm playing Blitz, I play whatever. I play modern, I play goofy openings, but I played my best opening. And he played an exchange Caro-Kann. So we're gonna get a couple of mini lessons against the exchange Caro. So knight c6, queen c7 is one of the variations, preventing bishop f4, and also hoping for e5 in the future. He plays knight e2, which enables this move again. I pin his knight, which disables this move. And historically, white played f3 here, but there's recently been a line where white moves out of the pin and tries to render this bishop pointless on that square. So basically, white will play the position like this and play like f3. Taking here is just not a good move. If you take on h2, king h1, the bishop has nowhere to go now. Like, for example, if it goes to h5, that's just a fork. And if it goes here, takes, discovered check, and the bishop will be lost. So like knight g3 check, and then I take the bishop. Now, I didn't know a whole lot about this line, but I know that some people like to go g6 here and then trade the bishop that way. And so that's basically what I just was hoping for. I traded this bishop, the knight was coming to b5, so I prevented it, and then I played knight e7, blocking this, bishop f5, and we got the following position. I castled. Now, I'm not worried about him opening my king, because I know that if I really want, I can always play king h8 and actually just slide over and begin my own attack down the g file. Of course, if he wants to repeat moves and make a draw, he's more than welcome. So I'm not really too concerned here, but here he played a move I didn't like. He played the move g4, and I just thought this was too much. The reason why g4 is too much is I go back and nothing has changed about my position. You'll notice that I have 7 out of my 8 pawns. I don't have an 8th pawn, but 7 out of my 7 pawns on light squares. His bishop is a light squared bishop, so I am completely counteracting the existence of his bishop, but there are a couple of ideas in the exchange Caro-Kann structure, and you can tell it's a structure because no e pawn for white, no c pawn for black, right? And it seems like a capture happened on d5. I either play in the middle with f6, e5, or I play on the queen side like this. Those are my 2 major sources of pawn play, right? So he goes queen g3, and now I play e5 immediately. So I'm ready to kind of do this, or even maybe queen trade and try to go like this. He doesn't take, and now I'm like, you know what? I want a pawn in the center, so I play f6. Somewhere Ben Feingold twitches, like visibly, he's like, ugh. I can just sort of tell something happened. And here Andre plays another move, which really caught me off guard, which was f4. I have the option to take either of these, but I can also split the defenders, like in basketball. And now I have a defended pass pawn. So that pawn has no pawns in front of it, right? So what do I do when he goes away? Well, I immediately defend the pawn with the move f5. And, you know, bishop to b3, knight back to e7. I think here I made a mistake, by the way. I should have played knight e7 first, because as luck would have it, he can go here. Oops. Oops. You need a little bit of luck sometimes. Instead of doing it in that order, he attacked first and gave me this position. And so now it's like, okay, black has a great position, but what's next? Like, what is next in my position? Well, I can continue to expand on the queen side. A5, A4, take as much space as possible. You see, if he opens the queen side, he just gives me a new target, right? I just have a new line of attack. But here, I was like, you know what? I want to break down the king side. So I slide my king out of the way of the bishop, right? He goes king g2. And then here I came up with a really nice idea. A pawn break. You might say b4. b4 is not a bad move, right? It's not that bad of a move, trying to get in on that side. But I came up with the move g5. And this was super nice. The point is that if he takes, I go f4, and he just loses. I mean, I just march into his position. I'm forking him. Now, he can delay the capture of the knight, but it doesn't really matter because this is an this is connected pass pawns. So if I just do nothing, if I just sit here and defend and then slowly win my material back, I'm winning in every endgame imaginable. So he cannot do that. So he tries to defend himself, but the problem is that when I go g5, I make a clearance move from my horse. And the horses are coming. All right, knight g6, knight g7. This knight, so important for the stability of my position. He takes on f5 with the rook. I take. Now my queen is defended. And then here I jump in again. I take one of his rooks. But here, I can't take this rook, right? I can't go here because of this. And this is hanging. So black to play and win. Very nice idea. I take the knight. And then when this happens, the killer move. The queen still can't take. Rook g8. And the queen's got to go. Can't go anywhere. It doesn't really matter where it moves. In fact, anywhere the queen moves, I can win it, which is kind of insane. Queen e3, I don't even have to take this. I have knight g2 check. Queen e1, I have knight g2 check. Queen f2, I have knight d3 check. So queen h4, I have knight g2 or knight takes. I mean, I can win all the pieces. So rook g8, and he resigns. Very nice idea here, g5. To just completely blow it apart here. Again, had he taken on f5, I would have taken with the knight. I would have hit both of these. Rook is coming down. And this is one of my favorite attacks in all of chess, the same side attack in the exchange Caro-Kann, where you just bring all your pawns forward and you lock down all sides of the board and then g5 and you just overwhelm them. I've won a handful of games like this. In fact, one later in this video, not exactly like this, but kind of similar. Then I think my winning streak was snapped ultimately by Play Dead. I don't know who this is. I think my 13-game winning streak was snapped. But then I got a little bit of revenge in this game. Part of my overall streak, like 17 wins out of 18 games or something like that. I played a Vienna gambit in this game, and we got a very interesting position. My opponent played one of the best moves, which is not normally played at amateur level, but at my level I see it a lot. And then one of these lines, like this is all from my course, this is all my e4 course, bishop d7, long castles is the best move here, trading the bishop, and now I take on d5. So my knight is defending my queen, which is defending my rook, takes, and he plays c6. Now I'm better here. I'm better because my open lines and my activity, so for example, rook d3, castles, knight g5 ideas, also a7 is a target. But I got a little bit excited here, and I got too creative for my own good. I played rook a5, and then here I played an absolutely insane move. Rook e1. Giving up my rook to get a check where his king cannot block and his bishop can't block. And if he plays here, I have knight e5, and his king can't move. It has no legal moves. He's just at the mercy of my discovered attack. The only move here that doesn't lose the game for black, rook g8, because I don't discovered attack the rook. Now, I didn't see rook g8, and neither did he. Everything else is losing for him. So I thought rook e1 was super genius, but he just went here, and somehow I'm like, how do I not have a... You know, I thought about playing bishop g5 here, for example. I also thought about playing bishop takes b6, which is a really funny move. He has to take with a knight, and then after this, if he goes knight d5, I just attack him, but he has this move. And that's it. I can no longer break through. So sometimes you gotta pull yourself back. And I did, you know, we got a pretty balanced game. 6 pawns each, and he caught up in development. And, you know, we had an equal position. I mean, it's like nobody really has advantage here. I was not able to kind of smash him out of the opening. And we have an endgame featuring rooks, right? So 2 rooks and 6 pawns each. And my opponent sidesteps on the second rank and tries to get in here with his 2 rooks. Now, what he probably underestimated is the fact that when I go here and threaten that, had he defended, I would have traded off a rook. And I don't think he liked that very much. I don't think he wanted to get his rooks traded. So instead of that, he just did this and really underestimated the fact that I can just run out this way. And even if he takes 2 of my pawns, I'm going to go rook c7. My king is always safe somehow. And I'm actually creating some threats myself. It's a very complicated 4-rook endgame. So instead of doing that, he tried to checkmate me, which is really disrespectful. So the checkmate here is like he's preventing my escape. So rook b2, king a3, and if it's not mate, it's like he's gonna win my rook, right? So he's trying to like beat me up here. So when he played b5, I was like, oh, well, b5 is kind of a disrespectful move, but I can still escape. I can't escape to c4, but I can escape out this way. So I delayed checking him. I didn't want his king to get off the back rank, so I ran, okay? He took with check, and I ran. And I gave him all of my second rank. He can take all the pawns. And he did. He took on h2, I took on c6, and he took on a2. But here's the problem. While he was gobbling my entire second rank, and he is up a pawn, I created an asset for myself. What is the best thing in my position right now? You say, the rooks. Nope. This pawn. My king made a daring escape out the side here, all right? Jumped off the side of the building, and suddenly became super valuable, and now I have the D pawn. So he has to worry about that, right? So he goes here trying to win yet another pawn. I'm like, nope, you can't have that one. That pawn's mine, thank you very much. He goes b4. I'm like, okay, go ahead and take this. By the time you take it, the pawn gets 1 square away from promotion, and you can protect it for a move, but I go here, you push, and now whenever this rook leaves, I'm gonna take this. I go help. My king ended up being my greatest asset. He walked up the whole side of the board on his own. What a big boy. All right, I'm not weight shaming him. And now queen, and sometimes a king and pawns draw against the rook, but not in this case, okay? For 2 reasons. Number 1, these pawns are super far back. If the pawns were advanced, like, I don't know why this would be the position, for example. Like, I'm just giving my opponent a lot more moves. This is a draw. Because by the time my king gets all the way back, black is I mean, right? The king is already escorting the pawn. I can't stop this. All I can do is give checks, and then we shuffle back and forth. But that's the number 1 reason why this is winning, is because these pawns are so far back. But the second reason is my king is super close. Like, sometimes the king starts over there. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But my king is a step away from this king, so black can't do everything. Black can't push all the pawns at the same time. And he tries, you know, he comes forward, but now I cut him off, and that pawn is really a non-factor. So I bring my king, you know, I bring my king, right? He's trying his best. I give him a check. I go back to try to win that pawn now. He breaks through, but again, my king is too close. Your king just cannot be this close. If my king is on a8, for example, if I go to c6, now the game is a draw. 1 square makes all the difference, because he just goes here, and now, but my king is too close. My king is too close, and I get his pawn, and here I play a disrespectful move. I don't take his pawn. I go here, because I want him to push, and then I want to mate him. So that was a fun game. That was an exciting Vienna game, which you know, used my opening knowledge to get the win. But the final game of this video was also a very fun game. This one was a Caro-Kann, another exchange variation. This one was a bit more unique. I didn't play knight c6. I instead gave him my light-squared bishop and played this structure. So removing my light-squared bishop from the game, and then I played this fianchetto structure again. The same thing that I did last time, but last time I traded my bishop. Okay, so again, I'm looking at f6, e5. I'm looking at this stuff, and, well, this is why, it really helps to know, your openings, right? So I expand on the queen side a little bit. He plays a3, and he's better, of course. He has two bishops. He has good control of the e-file. But after a little bit of shuffling back and forth by both of us, I finally was able to prepare f6 and e5. Okay, and he tried to stop e5, but he didn't stop it at all. So even though we now have a big exchange, and obviously, you can't really say black is any better here, black is having fun, okay? That's really the thing. You talk about material and king safety. This king is a lot weaker than mine. My king just has to sidestep to the corner and get out of the way of all light squared stuff. If this king is in the corner, I still have dark squared attacks. He does not have light squared attacks. I have a little wall built up. His structure is inverted to try to fight my dark squares, right? And it's a blitz game, so obviously we're both kind of trying to find the way through. I take his rook, I take the pawn, so I've now split the guards. He takes with check, and now we have the following position, right? I'm better here because I'm going to win more pawns on the queen side than he is. If he takes on a4, which looks like a good move, I take, and then I'm going to take that, and that's exactly what I did. I took on c3, and for some reason here, I just didn't take this. Like, I instead went for mate. I actually first thought checkmate was unstoppable. Then I realized he can harass my queen. I'm not trading queens. I need my queen to attack him, so I get my pawn out of the way, right? I should have taken on a3. I didn't, but I'm still very intent on doing this, and I'm lower on time. He played very fast in this game, so I finally go to trade queens, and we get to the following endgame, right? Where I don't want to give him this. If we get to this endgame and I can't even move my pawn forward because he blocks me, I'm not better. So instead of that, I defend my most advanced pawn, okay? And then I win this and we get to this endgame. This is a winning endgame for black because my pawn is so far advanced. It's so difficult for him to cover this constantly. Now, he does a good job. He starts harassing me. His rook and bishop are covering my promotion square. And, this endgame probably is winning, like, by force if I do it correctly. Like, something like this. And I need to find a way to win his... to be 2 pawns up and then slowly but surely advance forward. I don't have a lot of time, so things get a little bit goofy here. I tried to, like, shuffle back and forth. I'm trying to just give him a few checks. But finally, I do catch him lacking. I catch him sleeping a little bit, and I fork him. Right, again, because he has to guard my pawn the whole time. He gets a little too far, and now I pick up this pawn. And this is very easily winning because you go after h3, you move your king out of the way. All you have to do is not hang anything. And in a worst case scenario, he does this to himself. He pins his own bishop to his rook. And now he just can't move at all. Can't move his rook, can't move his bishop, because there's a trade coming. And once I win, I break through over here. And yeah, I mean, my win rate in the Caro is monstrous, I can just take this, and I do, and we walk the king all the way to g1, and my opponent resigns. So a couple of nice wins in the Caro, a couple of nice wins in e4 games with King's Gambit in Vienna, and a strange, English thing. And during this run, I gained like 90 points. I went from 26-10, which is, for me, just the cellar. It's like the worst... so low of a rating. Ugh, gross. For me, I always joke like, oh, 2600 is such a terrible rating. For me, it's like, if you've been at a rating and you lost 150 points, 200 points, like, that's not good. You're not going to be happy about that. But I rattled off a couple of nice wins, and I figured I would share them with you. And yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I hit the ground running when I stream, and sometimes I lose a tremendous amount of games. It happens. So I like to share my victories with all of you. Tomorrow, Norway Chess resumes. Till then, hope you enjoy. Go play some games. Go win them. I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here.